Within your trade industry, there are the likes of Nvidia, there are the likes of Apple. How are these companies going to be reacting today?
Very positive reaction, I think you'll see today and in the days ahead, and great to be with you with this breaking news. I think the most important element, and Mike alluded to this in your conversation, is the statement that came out jointly from the U.S. and Chinese negotiators in Geneva. Now, in the trade world, the joint statements are really something that we want to look and parse at and see what it really means. But the fact that this statement was issued jointly by the negotiators, they didn't put out separate statements, they put out one together. And the very opening language of that joint statement that was put out this morning is about the importance of the economic relationship, of the trade relationship between the U.S. and China, about the importance of a sustainable, long-term, mutually beneficial economic and trade relationship between the U.S. and China. So today's announcement of the tariff pause is obviously enormously important. But I think what it suggests for the negotiation in the months ahead is that the parties are very focused and very dedicated and believe that a mutually beneficial agreement can be struck. And so looking even in the medium and long term, I'm feeling very optimistic, and the tech industry is feeling very optimistic about where we're headed. Now,
interestingly, Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, who's been negotiating this in Switzerland over the weekend, joined our colleagues on Bloomberg Surveillance a little bit earlier. Just have a listen to what he said.
China was the only country who escalated their tariffs in response to our reciprocal tariff level. So that resulted in an unfortunate escalation. So we now have a mechanism to deal with that. Neither side wants a generalized decoupling. The U.S. is going to do a strategic decoupling.
I want your take on what strategic decoupling now means, Jason, for your key members of your trade association, Nvidia, who wants to sell into China, Apple, who wants to bring phones from China.
Yeah, I think it's a really important statement from the Treasury Secretary. It means that we're returning to a place where we look at national security issues separate and apart from economic issues. Where we were in a bad place, as the Treasury Secretary said, with the reciprocal tariffs and the escalating on both sides, was heading toward decoupling. Where we're returning to, and I think we'll see this in the negotiations going forward, is a place where we look at national security issues like the highest security need to make sure, for example, that the Chinese Communist Party military doesn't get access to the latest generation of AI technology, but at the same time, China, which is an enormously valuable market, 1.5 billion people, top 3 economy in the world, can get access to other U.S. technology. The semiconductor space is a great example of that. We're going to make semiconductors here in the United States going forward. President Trump is very focused on that. You've seen the tech industry announce hundreds of billions of dollars in investments here in the U.S. But if you can't sell any semiconductors to China, that investment in the U.S. doesn't make as much sense as if you can. So if we focus very narrowly, not on the total decoupling of the economies, but just on that national security issue to make sure that, for example, the military doesn't get the next generation of technology, then we can make sure that the economic investment that's necessary to trade with China continues to happen. And that's what we're seeing today.
I mean, it's interesting that we had President Trump saying he's already spoken to Tim Cook about that $500 billion that's being committed. We understand a lot of that was already committed into the United States. But that in some way is about semiconductor production here in the US, Jason. Have CEOs like Jensen, like Tim Cook, got the clarity they need to invest and to invest locally right now?
Yeah, and you saw it in the White House just the day after the president was inaugurated, a $500 billion announcement in AI manufacturing here in the U.S. from OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. Since that time, you've seen over $1.5 trillion of additional announcement in investment. So you're absolutely right. The tech industry is very focused on bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. This period of uncertainty created by the escalating reciprocal tariffs could have been harmful to that investment, no question about it. But what we're seeing today is getting back to where we need to be, where the tech industry is very focused on that investment. Semiconductors, AI manufacturing, data centers, servers, all of that happening in the U.S. to the tune of over $1.5 trillion $1.5 trillion, close to $2 trillion that's been announced in recent weeks and months. And I think we'll see that investment only accelerate going forward now that we're getting back to a place where we know that trade with China is going to happen. It's a huge market. We need to sell internationally. 95% of the people that live on the planet don't live in the United States. So if you're manufacturing in the new U.S., you need to access the world. So moving to trade agreements that these technology company investments can use in order to sell to the rest of the world, that's going to drive more manufacturing investment in the U.S.
So just on that point, it feels as though you're currently voicing the issue that Jensen Huang has, that he wants to be able to access the Chinese market, not with the most sophisticated chips, but at least some. Do you think that he'll manage that?
I do. And here's the second reason, in addition to accessing global markets, that's really important for U.S. companies. We want the U.S. to lead in the world in AI and manufacturing. So if manufacturing in the U.S. Means that companies that manufacture in the U.S. can access the rest of the world, that's only going to encourage more manufacturing investment. But the second thing it's going to do is make sure that we don't provide a perverse incentive for Chinese manufacturers to step up their game and access global markets. We want the rest of the world to buy from the U.S. as well, not just China. So if U.S. technology is not available to the rest of the world, if the U.S. is not a reliable trading partner for manufacturing that happens in the U.S., we're going to see other countries take advantage of that opportunity. We want NVIDIA and all the other great U.S. companies, great technology companies that are manufacturing in the U.S. to lead the world, and making sure that these trade agreements that we're moving to very quickly make that access possible. That's going to encourage them to invest in and manufacture in the U.S., and it will make sure that U.S. AI leadership continues, a clear Trump administration priority.